A lot of times, podcasters, especially podcasts that are using their podcast to grow their business, overlook the actual key elements that need to go into a podcast episode so that they could take the time and energy that they're spending creating this content and actually convert that into a potential newsletter subscriber, customer, client, or just keep them engaged on the listener journey itself. Okay, let me break that down. So, your podcast needs key elements for your audience to continue to want to engage with you, to continue to want to listen to your podcast, to continue to want to be engaged with your products, your services, you as a thought leader, as a subject matter expert. And there are three key elements that you need to consider, and here they are. One, how you intro your podcast. Do not waste the first 3 to 5 minutes of your podcast, and really especially the first 1 to 3 minutes on talking about anything that's silly or irrelevant, or most importantly, inside jokes if you have a co-host, or an inside joke if you know your guests really well, because that is automatically going to deflect your listener engagement, because they are going to not understand what the inside joke is or not appreciate the silliness. They came for what the title of the episode and the episode description was. And if they get there and that's not what they get in the first 3 minutes or so, you're out. Second, calls to action. I probably mention a call to action in every one of these lives that I do. And that is because there's nothing more important to growing your business with a podcast than your call to action. And your call to action needs to be more specific than rate or review my podcast, or if you like this podcast, tell a friend, or sign up for my newsletter. Those are not strong enough calls to action. The calls to action need to be something that is going to benefit your listener to continuing the conversation with you. Something very specific where you're solving a pain point or providing them a solution, a transformation, a transition, or something that's going to make them feel lighter and smarter as a result of engaging with you after they've listened to the podcast. So give them the name of your show, how to get in touch with you, and what to do once they get there. Another bonus tip around that is use the URL that's attached to your podcast name, not necessarily your business name. So if your business is Business Growth Podcast, but your business is Produce Your Podcast, make sure you own the URL businessgrowthpodcast.com so that you can, in your call to action, they're already thinking about the name of your show. They're not necessarily thinking about the name of your business. So just redirect that URL back to your website where they can actually find the podcast in the show notes and the downloadable PDF, the opt-in, wherever you're driving them. And third is your outro. So your intro, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them how to continue to get in touch with you, and then tell them again who you are, what the podcast is about, and very much personally invite them to take an action, because podcast listenership, especially audio, is one of the most intimate experiences that you can have as a thought leader or subject matter expert with your specific audience. So don't communicate to them like you're speaking to the masses in a huge arena or stadium. Speak to them one-on-one. I am inviting you to go to my podcast and download the PDF on how CTAs can convert. See what I did there? It's like really, really personal. Make sure you're inviting them, and make sure you're pulling them in, pulling them closer. Have them feel like that they are the only person that you are talking to. And you will very much create a solid relationship with your listeners, one listener at a time. And that is how you expand and grow your podcast audience. And that is how you get your podcast audience into your sequencing, into your funnels. And that is how you get your podcast audience to become your customers.